Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. The horizon's edge was far from Earth, farther than any human had ever traveled before. Jake had been in space for 20 years, but this mission was different. This time they were looking for aliens. Captain, we're picking up something strange, said Commander Ryan Blake from his station. He was Jake's second in command, a good man who never panicked, but now his voice sounded worried. Jake walked over to look at Ryan's screen. The numbers and lights meant nothing to most people, but Jake could read them like a book. What he saw made his heart beat faster. How big is it? Jake asked. Bigger than anything we've ever seen, Ryan said. It's at least 10 times the size of our ship. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez looked up from her workstation. She was the ship's expert on alien languages and cultures, though she had never actually met an alien before. No human had. Are they trying to talk to us? Lisa asked. I think so, Ryan said, but the signals are unlike anything in our databases. Jake made a quick decision. Put me on shipwide communications, he said. When Ryan nodded, Jake spoke into his microphone. This is the captain speaking. We have made contact with an unknown vessel. All crew members report to stations. This is not a drill. The bridge became busy with activity. Officers checked their equipment and ran final tests on all systems. Jake felt proud of his crew. They were scared, but they were doing their jobs. Captain, they're sending us a visual message, Ryan said. Put it on the main screen. Jake ordered. The stars disappeared from the front window. In their place appeared something that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. It was clearly not human. The being on the screen was tall and seemed to be made of living crystal. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from within. Her eyes were larger than human eyes and completely black. She wore what looked like armor made of the same crystal material as her skin, but the most striking thing about her was the way she held herself, even through the screen. Jake could tell this was someone used to being obeyed, someone used to power. When she spoke, her voice was like music, but cold music, the kind you might hear in a place where no one had laughed for a very long time. I am Queen Zephyr of the Vixari Empire, she said. The words came through the ship's translation system, but Jake wondered how accurate it was. You have entered our space without permission. Identify yourselves. Jake stepped forward. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times, but his mouth still felt dry. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Horizons Edge. We come in peace. We seek friendship between our peoples. The alien queen's expression did not change. Human, she said, like she was tasting the word. We have not heard of your species. You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to be taken into custody. Your Majesty, Jake said, trying to stay calm. We mean no harm. Perhaps we can discuss this. There is nothing to discuss, Queen Zappy said. You will comply or you will be destroyed. Lisa stepped forward. She had been studying the alien's body language and speech patterns. Captain, I think there might be a way to. As she spoke, Lisa moved closer to the communications console. The ship had been having small problems with the hologram system all week. As Lisa reached for a control, a spark flew from the panel and she jerked her hand back, but something went wrong. Hologram system did something it was never supposed to do. For just a moment, Queen Zephyr's image became solid and Lisa's hand, moving away from the spark, brushed against the alien queen's arm. The effect was immediate and terrible. Queen Zephyr's eyes went wide. She stepped back as if she had been burned. Around her, Jake could see other aliens, moving quickly, their voices high and excited. "You touched me," Queen Zephyr said. Her voice was different now, not cold anymore but filled with something Jake could not identify. Shock, anger, fear. "I'm sorry," Lisa said quickly. "It was an accident. System malfunctioned. I didn't mean to." "No one touches a Vexari royal," Queen Zephyr said. Her voice was getting louder. "No one. Do you understand what you have done?" Jake stepped between Lisa and the screen. "Your Majesty, please." Dr. Rodriguez meant no disrespect. It was a simple mistake. "Mistake," Queen Zephyra laughed, but it was not a happy sound. In 3,000 years of Vexari history, no alien has ever dared to touch royalty. The punishment for such an act is death, not just for the one who touched, but for their entire species. The bridge became very quiet. Jake could hear his heart beating in his ears. However, Queen Zephyr continued, and Jake held his breath. "You are clearly ignorant of our ways, and there was something unusual about your touch." She was quiet for a long moment, studying Lisa with those dark eyes. "I will give you one chance," Queen Zephyr finally said. "One of you will come to our world and face the trial of essence. If you survive, your species lives. If you fail, we will hunt down every human in the galaxy and destroy them." "What is the trial of essence?" Jake asked. "A test that reveals the true nature of a being," Queen Zephyr said. "No alien species has ever survived it. You have 7 of your days to decide who will come. Choose wisely, humans. The fate of your species depends on it." The screen went dark. The stars appeared again in the window. But everything had changed. Ryan broke the silence first. "Captain, what are our orders?" Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa was pale but standing straight. Ryan was ready for whatever came next. The other officers were waiting for his decision. "Set course for their world," Jake said, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them what has happened. Tell them we may have started something we can't finish." As the horizon's edge changed direction, Jake wondered if he had just signed humanity's death warrant. But there was no choice. Now they had to see this through to the end. In 7 days, one of them would face an alien trial that no one had ever survived, and the future of humanity would be decided by that single test. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered if humans would still exist to see them next week. The Vexari home world was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. As the horizon's edge approached the planet Jake stared at, cities made entirely of crystal that rose from the surface like frozen lightning. The structures twisted up toward the sky, catching and reflecting light in ways that hurt to look at directly. "I've never seen anything like it," Lisa whispered. She stood next to Jake on the bridge, both of them watching their destination grow larger. On the screen, the energy readings are off the charts, Ryan reported from his station. "Captain, these beings have technology we can't even understand." Jake nodded. The past 7 days had been the longest of his life. He had sent messages to Earth, but it would take months for any reply to reach them. Whatever happened here, they were on their own. "Sir, they're sending us landing coordinates," the communications officer said. "Take us down," Jake ordered. The ship descended through clouds that sparkled like diamond dust. As they got closer to the surface, Jake could see that the crystal cities were even more impressive than they had looked from space. Each building seemed to grow from the ground like a living thing, and the whole city pulsed with a soft internal light. Captain, Lisa said quietly, "I've been thinking about what happened during our first contact. When I touched the Queen, something changed in her expression. For just a moment she looked surprised, maybe even curious." "What are you getting at?" Jake asked. "I think the touch affected her somehow," Lisa said. "The way she reacted wasn't just anger, there was something else." Before Jake could respond, their ship touched down on a landing pad made of smooth black crystal. Through the windows, they could see alien figures approaching. The Vexari moved with grace, but Jake noticed they kept their distance from each other. Even when they had to work together, they avoided any physical contact. "Interesting," Lisa murmured, making notes on her tablet. The airlock opened and warm air flowed into the ship. It smelled like ozone and something else Jake couldn't identify. Sweet but sharp at the same time. "Remember," Jake said to his landing party, which included Lisa and Ryan, "no sudden movements, no physical contact with anyone, and let me do the talking." They walked down the ramp onto the crystal surface. The aliens waiting for them were similar to Queen Zephyr, but smaller and wearing simpler crystal armor. They formed two lines, creating a path for the humans to walk between. "Follow," one of the aliens said. Its voice was like Queen Zephyr's, musical but cold. They walked through streets of crystal toward the largest structure in the city. Jake had seen pictures of human cathedrals and palaces, but nothing compared to this. The building rose up like a mountain made of pure light, twisting and turning as it climbed toward the sky. Inside, the walls glowed with soft colors that shifted and changed as they walked. Jake realized the entire building was alive in some way, responding to the presence of people moving through it. "The throne room," their guide announced. The doors opened without being touched, and Jake stepped into a chamber that took his breath away. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above them. The walls were covered with what looked like stars, but Jake realized they were actually small crystals that gave off their own light. At the far end of the room, Queen Zephyr sat on a throne carved from a single piece of black crystal. She was even more impressive in person than she had been on the screen. Her presence filled the room like a physical weight, but she was not alone. Around her stood other Vexari, clearly important ones based on the elaborate designs of their crystal armor. Jake could feel their hostility even from across the large room. "Approach, Queen Zephyr commanded." Jake led his team forward until they were standing about 20 feet from the throne. Up close, he could see that Queen Zephyr's crystal skin was not perfectly smooth. There were patterns in it, like veins that pulsed with faint light. "You came," she said. It sounded like she had not expected them to. "We keep our word," Jake replied. One of the other Vexari stepped forward. This one was taller than the others and wore armor covered in sharp spikes. When he spoke, his voice was like breaking glass. "Your Majesty," he said, not looking at the humans, "these creatures should be destroyed immediately. They have shown disrespect to the crown. There can be no trial for such beings." High Counselor Thexar speaks wisdom. Another alien agreed. "Why waste time with inferior creatures?" Queen Zephyr held up one hand and the room became Silent, the decision has been made. Thixnar, the humans will face the trial of essence, and which of you will undergo the trial? She asked, looking at Jake's group. Jake stepped forward. I will. No, Lisa said immediately. Your Majesty, I should be the one. I'm the one who touched you. This is my responsibility, Dr. Rodriguez, Jake said. Firmly, I'm the captain. The safety of my crew is my duty. But I'm the cultural expert, Lisa argued. I have the best chance of understanding what the trial involves. Queen Zephyra watched this exchange with interest. You argue about who will risk death for the others, she observed. This is unusual behavior. We protect each other, Jake said simply. That's what humans do. Foolish. High Counselor, the Xanar muttered. Weakness disguised as virtue. But Queen Zephyra leaned forward in her throne. Tell me more about this protection instinct, she said. Lisa saw her chance. Your Majesty, humans form strong emotional bonds. We care for members of our group, even at cost to ourselves. When someone we care about is in danger, we feel their fear and pain as if it were our own. You feel the emotions of others, Queen Zephyra asked. Her voice had become very quiet. In a way, yes, Lisa said. We call it empathy. We can't read minds, but we can often tell what others are feeling by watching their faces and body language. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Around her, the other Vixari shifted uncomfortably. The Vixari evolved beyond such weaknesses long ago, Thexar said. We are not controlled by primitive emotions. But Jake noticed that Queen Zephyra did not agree with him. She was staring at Lisa with an expression Jake couldn't read. The trial will begin tomorrow, Queen Zephyra announced. Suddenly, Dr. Rodriguez will be the one to face it. Your Majesty, Jake started to protest. The choice is made, Queen Zephyra said, and her tone made it clear. The discussion was over. Guards will escort you to your quarters. Rest well, human. Tomorrow you will either prove your species worthy of existence, or you will die trying. As they were led away, Jake heard Thexar speaking quietly to the other Vixari nobles. This trial is a waste of time. No alien has ever survived it because no alien mind can withstand direct contact with Vixari consciousness. These humans will be eliminated, and then we can forget this whole unfortunate incident. But Jake also noticed something else. Queen Zephyra remained on her throne long after everyone else had left, staring at the spot where Lisa had been standing, and for just a moment her perfect crystal composure seemed to crack, revealing something underneath that looked almost like loneliness. That night in their crystal chambers, Jake couldn't sleep. Tomorrow one of his crew members would face a trial designed to kill her, and he would have to stand by and watch, knowing that the survival of humanity might depend on something as simple as an accidental touch between two very different beings. Outside their windows, the crystal city pulsed with its strange light. Beautiful, an alien under foreign stars. Lisa woke up before dawn, though she wasn't sure what dawn meant on this alien world. Through her crystal window she could see 3 different colored suns starting to rise, painting the sky shades of purple and gold. Today might be the last day of her life. She had spent most of the night reading everything she could find about Vixari culture in the ship's computer. Most of it was guesswork based on their brief contact, but she had learned a few important things. The Vixari were very Old as a species, they valued order and control above everything else, and they never ever touched each other. Dr. Rodriguez, Jake's voice came through the communication device the Vixari had left for them. I'm here, Captain, she replied. How are you feeling? Lisa almost laughed. How was she supposed to feel? Scared, she said honestly, but ready. Lisa, Jake's voice was serious. If things go wrong, if the trial becomes too dangerous, I want you to stop. Survival of humanity isn't worth your life. With respect, Captain, I think that's exactly what it's worth, Lisa said. Besides, I don't think stopping will be an option once it starts. Before Jake could argue, their crystal door opened. A Vixari guard stood in the entrance, tall and silent. It is time, the guard said. Lisa took a deep breath and followed the guard out of her room. Jake and Ryan were allowed to come with her, but only as observers. The guard led them deeper into the Crystal Palace, down corridors that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Finally, they arrived at a chamber unlike anything Lisa had seen so far. It was perfectly round and carved from white crystals, so pure it seemed to glow from within. In the center of the room was a raised platform, and on that platform sat two chairs made of the same white crystal. Queen Zephyra was already there, standing beside one of the chairs. She had removed her armor and now wore only a simple robe of flowing crystal fiber. Without the armor, she looked smaller, more fragile, but somehow more real. Dr. Rodriguez, Queen Zephyra said, are you prepared? As much as anyone can be for something they don't understand, Lisa replied. Around the edges of the room, other Vixari had gathered to watch. Lisa could see High Counselor Thexar among them, his expression clearly showing he expected to watch her die. The trial of essence is simple in concept, Queen Zephyra explained. You and I will create a mental link. Through this link, I will see your true nature, and you will see mine. Most beings cannot survive the experience. Their minds are not strong enough to handle direct contact with Vixari consciousness. What makes Vixari consciousness so dangerous? Lisa asked. Queen Zephyra hesitated for a moment. We are very old, she said finally. We have seen and done things that would drive most beings insane. We have learned to control our emotions so completely that they no longer exist. This emptiness, this void where feelings should be, destroys other minds when they touch it. Lisa nodded. I understand, but she wasn't sure she did. How could you prepare your mind to touch something that was essentially empty of all feeling? Sit, Queen Zephyra commanded, gesturing to one of the crystal chairs. Lisa sat down and immediately felt something strange. The chair was warm, and it seemed to mold itself to fit her body perfectly. More than that, she could feel it connecting to her, somehow like tiny threads reaching into her mind. Queen Zephyra sat in the other chair, and Lisa gasped. Suddenly she could feel the alien queen's presence in her thoughts. It was like standing at the edge of a vast frozen ocean, cold and empty, and so deep she couldn't see the bottom. Do not be afraid, Queen Zephyra and LT Unk and GT voice said, but Lisa heard it inside her head instead of with her ears. Let your mind open to mine. Lisa tried to relax, tried to let her mental barriers down. As she did, the connection grew stronger. She began to see flashes of Queen Zephyr's memories, thousands of years of ruling, millions of decisions that affected billions of lives, wars that lasted centuries, the slow, gradual numbing of all emotion until nothing remained but duty and power. It was terrifying. Lisa felt herself starting to drown in the emptiness of it all. She understood now why other beings died during this trial. The Vixari mind was like a black hole that sucked in all warmth and feeling, but then something unexpected happened as Lisa's mind touched Queen Zepha's. The connection worked both ways, and Queen Zepha suddenly felt something she had not experienced in over 1,000 years. Joy. It came from Lisa's memories, the day she had graduated from university and seen her parents crying with pride. The first time she had translated an alien text successfully, the warm feeling of friendship with her crewmates, the excitement of exploring space and discovering new things. Queen Zephyr gasped aloud, her crystal body shining brighter as emotions flooded through. Sorry. Fear, hope, love, sadness, all the feelings she had locked away centuries ago came rushing back, but the flood of emotion was too much. Lisa could feel Queen Zephyr's mind starting to break under the weight of feelings she was no longer used to having. At the same time, Lisa herself was being pulled deeper into the cold emptiness that was the core of Vixari consciousness. They were both dying. Lisa knew she had to do something, but what? The trial was killing them both. In desperation, she did the only thing she could think of. She reached out, not with her mind this time, but with her hand. She leaned forward in her crystal chair and touched Queen Zephyr's arm. The reaction from the watching Vixari was immediate. Several of them cried out in shock. Thea shouted something that sounded like a curse, but the touch worked instead of making things worse. The physical contact somehow balanced the mental connection. Lisa's human warmth flowed into Queen Zephyr, not overwhelming her this time, but filling the empty spaces gradually, gently. And Queen Zephyr's ancient wisdom and strength flowed back, helping Lisa understand and control the connection. For the first time in over a millennium, Queen Zephyr felt complete, and Lisa connected to a mind that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, felt a perspective on the universe that no human had ever experienced. The trial continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. When it finally ended, both women sat back in their chairs, breathing heavily. Queen Zephyr stared at Lisa with wonder. In her dark eyes, "You survived," she said. "More than that, you helped me survive. We helped each other," Lisa said. She felt exhausted but strangely peaceful. High Counselor Thexar stepped forward, his face twisted with anger. "This proves nothing," he declared. "The human used some kind of trick. She contaminated the trial." But Queen Zephyr stood up, and when she spoke, her voice was different than it had been before. Warmer somehow. The trial revealed exactly what it was supposed to reveal. She said, "The true nature of humanity, and the true nature of what we, Vixari, have become." She looked around at all the watching aliens. "For too long we have believed that emptiness was strength, that the absence of feeling was wisdom. But this human has shown me that we were wrong." She turned back to Lisa. "Your species has passed the trial. You have earned the right to exist in our space, Your Majesty." Dexar protested. "The decision is made," Queen Zephyr said firmly, but then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She smiled. 3 weeks after the trial, everything changed. Jake stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, reading reports that would have seemed impossible a month ago. Across the Vixari Empire, entire Colonies were in revolt, some supported Queen Zephyr's new policies of emotional openness, others demanded she be removed from power for being contaminated by human influence. Captain Ryan called from his station, "We're getting another distress signal from the mining colony at Cathura. Thexnar's forces are attacking civilian targets now." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. "High Counselor, Thexar had declared Queen Zephyra unfit to rule just days after the trial. He claimed that her exposure to human emotions had damaged her mind and made her dangerous to Vixari society. What made things worse was that many Vixari agreed with him. Any word from the Queen?" Jake asked. "She's defending the capital city," Lisa reported. "She had been working as a translator and cultural advisor trying to help Queen Zephyra navigate the crisis, but her forces are spread thin. Thier has more support than we thought." Jake made a decision he hoped he wouldn't regret. "Set course for Cathura," he ordered. "We're going to help," Captain Ryan said. "Carefully. Earth Command ordered us not to get involved in Vixari internal politics. Earth Command is 2 months away." By message, Jake replied, "By the time they tell us what to do, this war will be over, and if Thexnar wins, humans will be the first species he exterminates." The horizon's edge jumped to faster than light speed, racing toward the mining colony. During the trip, Lisa worked with Queen Zephyra's advisors to plan their strategy. "The problem is cultural," Lisa explained to Jake. "For thousands of years, the Vexari have believed that emotions are weakness. When Queen Zephyra started showing feelings after the trial, many of her people saw it as proof that she was no longer fit to rule. But she's a better leader now," Jake protested. "She cares about her people instead of just seeing them as tools." "We know that," Lisa said, "but Thexar is convincing others that caring makes her weak. He's playing on their oldest fears." When they arrived at Cora, they found the mining colony under heavy attack. Thexnar's forces had surrounded the main settlement and were demanding surrender. Jake opened a communication channel to the attacking ships. "This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. You are attacking innocent civilians. Stand down immediately." Thexar's face appeared on the screen. The Vari leader looked even more frightening than he had in the throne room, his crystal armor now covered in sharp spikes and his black eyes filled with hatred. "Human," he snarled, "you are responsible for this corruption of our queen. You and your poisonous emotions have destroyed thousands of years of Vexari purity. We helped her remember what it means to care about others." Jake replied. "That's not corruption, that's growth." "Weakness," Dexar shouted. "You have made her weak and pathetic, but I will restore the Vexari to their proper state, starting with your destruction." The communication ended, and immediately Jake's ship was under attack. Thier's forces had weapons far more advanced than anything humans possessed, but Jake had one advantage they didn't expect. He cared about the people he was protecting. Evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered. "Don't try to fight them head-on, just keep them busy while the colonists evacuate the space." Battle was fierce but brief. Jake's ship took heavy damage, but they managed to hold off the attackers long enough for most of the civilians to escape to safety. Just as things looked hopeless, reinforcements arrived. Queen Zephyr's flagship appeared in space above the colony along with a dozen other ships. But these Vixari vessels looked different. Their crystal hulls seemed brighter somehow, and when Queen Zephyra spoke over the communication channel, Jake could hear the change in her voice. "Thexar," she said, "this ends now, my Queen." Thexar replied, but his voice was mocking, or should I say my former Queen, you are no longer fit to lead. You have been infected with human weakness. I have been cured of Vixari blindness, Queen Zephyra corrected. For too long we believed that strength came from emptiness, but true strength comes from connection, from caring about others enough to fight for them. The two fleets faced each other in space above the mining colony. Jake could feel the tension building toward a battle that would decide the future of the Vixari Empire. "You want to know what human emotion has done to me?" Queen Zephyra continued. "It has made me understand that a leader who feels nothing for her people is not a leader at all. She is just a tyrant. Better a strong tyrant than a weak fool." Thexar shot back, "Then let us see which is truly stronger." Queen Zephyr said. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Queen Zephyra's forces fought with a passion and determination that surprised their enemies. They weren't just following orders anymore. They were fighting for something they believed in. But Thexar's forces were larger and better equipped. Despite their newfound motivation, Queen Zephyra and LT Uncan GT ships were slowly being overwhelmed. That's when Lisa made a suggestion that changed everything. "Captain," she said, "what if we could help other Vixari experience what Queen Zephyra experienced during the trial? What if we could show them what emotions actually feel like instead of just telling them?" Jake stared at her. "You want to create some kind of empathic connection with enemy soldiers during a battle? Why not?" Lisa said. "It worked with the Queen. It was insane. It was dangerous. It might not work at all." But Jake had learned something important during his time with the Vixari. Sometimes the crazy plan was the only plan that had a chance. "Do it," he said. Lisa worked frantically at her station, using everything she had learned about Vixari technology and psychology. She couldn't create the deep connection that had happened during the trial, but maybe she could create something simpler. Broadcast that would let Vixari minds briefly touch human emotions. "Ready," she announced. "Send it." Jake ordered. The transmission went out to every ship in both fleets. For just a moment, every Vixari in the battle felt what it was like to be human. They felt Jake's determination to protect innocent lives. They felt Lisa's hope for peace between species. They felt the love that connected the human crew members to each other, and something amazing happened. One by one, Thexar ship stopped fighting. The Vixari warriors, experiencing emotion for the first time in their lives, began to understand what Queen Zephyra had been trying to tell them. Strength didn't come from emptiness. It came from having something worth fighting for. By the end of the day, Thexar found himself commanding only a handful of ships while most of his fleet had switched sides. "This is not over," he transmitted to Queen Zephyra before jumping away to hyperspace. "I will return when you have proven to all Vixari how weak emotion makes you." But Queen Zephyra was no longer listening to threats. She was too busy feeling something she had never expected to feel: gratitude toward the strange little creatures who had helped her people remember what it meant to be truly alive. 6 months later, the Crystal City looked different. Jake walked through streets that had once been cold and empty, now filled with Vexari who moved with purpose and something that looked almost like happiness. The building still reached toward the sky, like frozen lightning, but now they pulsed with warmer colors. The harsh blue-white light had been replaced with softer shades of gold and green. It's amazing what a little emotion can do to a place, Lisa said, walking beside him. She carried a tablet filled with notes about Vexari culture, but now the notes were based on observation rather than guesswork. Today was the day they would sign the first official treaty between humans and Vexari. It had taken months of careful negotiation, but they had finally created an agreement that both species could accept. Captain Morrison, a familiar voice called. Jake turned to see Commander Ryan approaching, dressed in his best uniform. Behind him walked several other crew members from the Horizon's Edge, all preparing for the ceremony. Any word from Earth, Jake asked. Ryan smiled. 3 messages came in this morning. The first one was from Earth Command officially approving the treaty. The second was from the President congratulating us on making first contact. The third was from my wife asking when I'm coming home. Jake laughed. And what did you tell her? That I'm helping to build the future, Ryan said. But I'd like to see her soon. They walked together toward the Great Crystal Palace. Along the way, Jake noticed something that still amazed him. Vexari citizens were touching each other, not often and still carefully, but they were doing it. A brief touch of hands, a pat on the shoulder, even what looked like hugs between close friends. Queen Zephyr had explained that for her people, physical contact had always been associated with mental connection. They had avoided it because they were afraid of feeling too much, but now many Vexari were discovering that feeling could be a good thing. Inside the palace, the throne room had been transformed for the ceremony. The harsh lighting had been softened and comfortable chairs had been arranged for representatives from both species. Jake could see Vexari nobles sitting next to human diplomats, talking quietly and occasionally even sharing what looked like jokes. At the center of it all sat Queen Zephyr on her crystal throne, but she looked nothing like the cold, distant ruler Jake had first met. She wore robes of soft blue crystal that seemed to glow with inner warmth. Her face, once frozen in an expression of power, now showed traces of curiosity, amusement, and something that might have been contentment. Captain Morrison, she called as Jake entered. Dr. Rodriguez, please join me. Jake and Lisa walked to the front of the room where 2 chairs had been placed near the throne. As they sat down, Queen Zephyr leaned forward. I wanted to speak with you before the ceremony begins, she said. To thank you for what you have given my people. We just showed you what you already had, Lisa replied. The capacity for emotion was always there. You had just forgotten how to use it, perhaps, Queen Zephyr said, but without your help, we never would have remembered. She paused, looking around at her people. Do you know what the most surprising thing has been? What's that? Jake asked. We are stronger now, Queen Zephyr said. I thought emotion would make us weak, would make us less able to make difficult decisions. But the opposite has happened. When you care about the people you are protecting, when you feel their pain and share their joy, you fight harder, you think more clearly, you find solutions you never would have discovered when you felt nothing. A Vexari aide approached the throne and whispered something to Queen Zephyr, she nodded and stood up. It is time, she announced. The ceremony began with speeches from both human and Vexari leaders. They talked about friendship between species, about the benefits of cooperation, about building a better future together. But Jake found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple accident, a malfunction that caused Lisa to brush against an alien queen's holographic image. That tiny touch had changed everything. Finally, it was time to sign the actual treaty documents. Jake and Queen Zephyr approached a table made of clear crystal where the papers waited. Jake signed first using a pen that had been specially designed to work on Vexari crystal paper. Then he stepped back to let Queen Zephyra sign, but instead of immediately moving to the table, Queen Zephyra stopped and looked at Lisa. Dr. Rodriguez, she said, would you stand with me as I sign? Lisa looked surprised but moved to stand next to the alien queen. The room became very quiet as Queen Zephyr picked up the crystal stylus that would make her signature official, but before she could sign, she paused and looked at Lisa again. 6 months ago, you touched me by accident. Queen Zephyra said that touch nearly caused a war. It definitely caused a revolution. It changed the course of both our species forever. She lifted her hand toward Lisa. The room held its breath. Touch me again, human, she said. This time the words were not a threat, they were an invitation. Lisa slowly reached out and placed her hand over Queen Zephyr's. The moment their skin made contact, Jake could see something pass between them, not the overwhelming mental connection of the trial, but something simpler and more profound: trust, understanding, friendship. Queen Zephyr signed the treaty with their hands still touching. The moment her signature was complete, the room erupted in cheers from both humans and Vexari. Later at the celebration dinner, Jake found himself sitting between Queen Zephyra and Lisa, watching as representatives from both species shared food, stories, and laughter. What happens now? Lisa asked. Now we build something new, Queen Zephyr replied, an alliance based not on fear or power, but on genuine care for each other's well-being. It won't be easy, Jake said. There are still Vexari who oppose the changes. Dexter is out there somewhere, probably planning his return. And there will be humans who fear us, Queen Zephyr added, who think we are too dangerous to trust, but we'll face those challenges together. Lisa said, humans and Vexari working as partners. Queen Zephyra smiled, an expression that had become much more common over the past 6 months. Together, she agreed. As the celebration continued, around them, Jake looked out through the crystal windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human and Vexari ships were already working together, exploring new worlds and protecting trade routes. The alliance would face many tests in the years to come. There would be those who opposed it, who preferred the old ways of isolation and mistrust, but Jake had faith that they would overcome those challenges because they had learned something important. Connection was stronger than isolation. Empathy was more powerful than fear, and sometimes the smallest gesture, like a simple touch between two different beings, could change the entire galaxy. The alien queen lifted her hand toward the human, and the human reached back. In that moment of contact, two species found their future together among the stars, and in a universe full of wonders and dangers, they were no longer alone.